think I will start. So welcome to day 3 of United XR Europe 2025. So I'm delighted to open today this session, Memorial Edutainment in the Age of Artificial Intelligence, created as part of the Culture and Heritage track. So my name is Géraldine BUEKEN. I'm founder of XR4Heritage. It's an innovative lab operating at the crossroads of archives, diverse narratives, and democratic imagination. So it's what we do. You will see it's really close of all the topics we will discuss during this conference. So today, perhaps you know, but it's 10 December, the International Human Rights Day, a moment when we commemorate the adoption of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So this this text that remind us of the right of every individual and urge us to uphold inequality and human dignity. These two principles are being profoundly challenged at the age of artificial intelligence. It will be something we will discuss, because as human-machine interaction, we define the way we relate to our humanity. The cultural sector becomes an essential space to question, to shape, and safeguard what ties us together. So this is exactly what today's conference aims to explore: inspiring cultural practices that sit at the intersection of social innovation and technological transformation. So throughout the year, the Culture and Heritage track has been dedicated to bringing together 3 worlds that rarely meet: technology solution provider, cultural institution, and creative storytellers. So let's come back to what brings us together this afternoon. So this afternoon, we will connect these 3 worlds, like I say, and we will have 3 parts, 3 conferences, complementary conference. This is a rich program to explore our main theme, Memorial Edutainment, from every angle. A total of 10 professionals from across the globe who will take the stage today to share their unique perspective on artificial intelligence-driven memory. So we will begin with 2 opening keynotes over the first 55 minutes. We will then move straight into panel 1, Resurrecting the Past, and following by panel 2, Archives told in the first person through artificial intelligence. All the speakers joining us today are pioneers who leverage emerging technology to serve memory, heritage, and collection meaning, and collective meaning. So this is the structure of each speaker, but like you know, Memorial Edutainment also brings major ethical questions: how we create memory, who speak for the past, who benefits from these new experiences, and how artificial intelligence reshapes the boundaries of audiovisual expression. And because immersive memorial experience constitute a new audiovisual medium, it's felt essential to begin this afternoon with a sector-wide perspective grounded in the finding of the newly released 2025 European Media Industry Outlook. So this is the name of the report, Shaping Europe's Digital Futures. So to open the conference, I'm honored to invite Sacha BAUDET. Is extramuros expert at DigiConnect European Commission. So join me on stage for introduction keynote titled The Disruptive Impact of Artificial Intelligence on the Audiovisual Industry. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot, Géraldine, for the introduction. So my name is Sacha and I will represent the European Commission this afternoon. So perhaps just to start with stating the obvious, the European Commission is the big institutions and technologies, culture are addressed in many ways by many services. So in my case, I'm representing DG Connect, so we are focusing on communication technologies and networks. And more specifically, my unit is working on the support to the audiovisual and news industries. Okay, we have one main tool with which we are working. It's the Creative Europe program, and in particular, its media strands. Okay, and through the media strands of the program, we are financing studies that guide us in the way we are shaping the support we are giving to the industry. In this case, this is the European Media Industry Outlook. So the second edition was published earlier this year in September. And some of the findings tend to comfort us in our vision of cross-sector cooperations, and in this case, from audiovisual and education. So I think I can move on after seeing this. Exactly, let's go. So I will present the picture of the industry given by the report, then some insight from consumers, because we have also launched consumer surveys, which goes hand in hand with the media industry outlook. And I think there is a specific added value in this survey because we consulted more than 25,000 Europeans. So for a survey, it's quite expensive. Consider that usually we are mostly revolving around 1,000 people consulted. So for us, it's a clear picture of Europeans, and it gives insights on how they are understanding the technologies we are mentioning today. And then I will conclude with some example of translation of these findings into EU policies. Okay, let's move on though. So the European Media Industry Outlook. First, all the outlook, the consumer surveys, the policy text I will mention are all available online. They are public, so you can retrieve them easily. It's not a problem at all. So the first thing I wanted to say is that is it coherent for us in the audiovisual sector to talk about AI, to try to better understand this technology? Because the last findings brought by independent experts show that while the overall uptake of AI is around 15% in different economic sectors, in the audiovisual industries, it's far higher. So for us, it's the first indication. As audiovisual professionals, you are innovators in that sense. So although the repartition of usage is not perfectly even among the audiovisual industries, you still appears at being main innovators and leaders in this field. So if you were to work with education professionals, you would, from start, bringing an expertise they don't necessarily have. So that's a first bridge you can create with them, bringing a technological expertise, and then you could apply it in a specific sector, indeed. So let's jump into this. So from the media industry outlook, and although I must apologize because there is a certain latency between the creation of such a report and its publication, we understand that AI has many usages that have helped in reshaping the way we are interacting with audiovisual content, and thus also in the information they are bringing, whether for educational purpose or just for leisure. Okay, so basically what we see is a shift in the way that people are able to interact directly with audiovisual content, and this is particularly true in the context of XR, of course. Okay, then we understand that at some point the difficulty somehow to reach consumers with the XR technologies was the way we were using XR devices. Was it basically simple to use them? Was it more simple or more complicated to use them rather than a screen, than a traditional screen? And in the case of AI, it seems that now this interaction between the content itself and the technology that is broadcasting it is made easier and better. So that's also a point here. Why is it relevant to talk about XR in education? Because it's starting to become a suitable technology to bring an educational content to young people. Okay, so basically the thing I want to emphasize on is that through AI we have a technical optimization which enhance the experience and the personalization of content, which could also help in better tapping the potential of audiovisual storytelling to create individual learning tracks. So now let's jump into consumers' observation, okay, feeling. What do they express when they are consulted about this? So the first thing is there an appeal for XR, basically? And I know I'm talking at an XR event and most probably to XR professionals, and I have to admit that the first results we had were a bit disappointing. Why? Because we understood that people were not necessarily understanding or identifying when they were engaging with XR. So basically, when we ask, have you ever tried XR? 70% of European consulted say no. But the problem we have, in the other hand, is that when we are looking at the number of users in Europe of certain apps that are extensively using AI, it's the other way around. More than 70% of people in Europe are using them. So our first conclusion is not that people are stupid or app provider are lying. It's just that they don't necessarily understand the technology we are using. And now it's the other way around, meaning that we're saying AI could help in education, but education could help in AI because they don't really realize that when they are using XR. But it's also the same with AI. However, in the case of AI, we note that they are not especially reluctant to use it. When we ask them whether they would be interested in further using this technology, most of the Europeans we consulted said, either I'm for being served with more AI tech, either I'm a bit concerned, but I still see more benefit to it. And then we have, in a less greater extent, some people saying, I'm too afraid or I don't want. But the overall majority of respondents during the consumer survey stated that they are interested in being more confronted to this technology. And even more interesting for this topic of education through these technologies is the willingness to be exposed to AI from young people. Okay, so you have the average people under 30, only 9% would be against. So it's quite interesting. And there as well, the fear also relates to education. So we need also people working in education defining how we can greater explain to people how these technologies could or are likely to impact their future. So now let's talk about cross-IP exploitation. Why? Because it's definitely an important aspect of the cooperation between two sectors, okay? How you can bring a content from a specific sector to another one. And in this context, how you can bring educational content or pure audiovisual content to the sphere of education. So AI indeed helps in creating content in many aspects, okay? Also the technology really needs to improve to be deployed at scale. Audiovisual professionals already identify it as a supporting tool. And basically, the last studies I consulted was one from the French film fund CNC. It was a month ago, and basically the uptake was booming, multiplied by 2 in a year among professionals of the sector. So there is a usage. We can see some avenues for working with the technology. I won't expand on this. I'm sure experts are here to give a clearer picture on that aspect. But for me, and for the Commission in particular, the interesting point is saying that if AI can help in fluidifying the relation between cross-IP exploitation under different sectors, we think it could be a success. Why? Because people state that they would prefer or they would be interested in further expanding their interaction with the content they already know. And that's a key point of the attention economy we are living in. So basically, since we are flooded into content, we need somehow to reassure ourselves with something we know, or at least that's what people consulted expressed in this survey. So we also think that the use of AI could help in reaching untapped people, consumer bases that are not yet into educational content because we bring them trends they already know. Okay, so as a conclusion, how do we translate these trends, these observations into direct EU support? So in October 2025, the Commission presented the Apply AI strategy as a direct result of the EU Continent Action Plan. And basically, for the cultural and creative sectors, we proposed 2 series of action. The first one being fostering the development of micro studios across the EU, specialized in AI-enhanced virtual production. So here we are totally in the remit of this discussion. I have to, the disclaimer is coming with a public institution, as you may expect. What does it mean for the Commission fostering a network of micro studios? Basically, it means that we will try to align the will and the mean to further develop production studios. How exactly? We are studying the question, and we hope to provide answers in the months to come. And we also propose to member states further investment for the development and deployment of European AI models, focusing on interactive and immersive storytelling. So here you go for the interaction with people and the cross-IP exploitation, and also on the discoverability of online media, music, and literary content. This is a bit far-fetched compared to our discussion, but still, I think discoverability of content, if you were to generate more content, and in particular educational content, would make sense here as well to support the sector and this endeavor. Important as well also, as you know, we are reaching the end of the current EU budget. If you were not aware, let me tell you that the current budget will end in 2027, and so we are proposing the next one. And the Commission presented its whole batch of new programs last summer. So as of 2028, the Commission is proposing to replace the Creative Europe program by a new one called Agora EU, which will merge several programs ranging from democracy to support creative and cultural industries. This trend integrates a clear objective of fostering transmedia adaptations of intellectual property, and also the exact repartition of the budget has not been yet defined. The overall envelope proposed is 3.2 billion. And to conclude, I would say that for the Commission, building on XR professionals' strong capacity in and knowledge of AI, consumer willingness to use XR technologies, and the appeal for cross-IP exploitations make us think that we could help in further developing cross-sectoral cooperation, notably in the field of audiovisual and XR for education purposes.
So perhaps stay on stage. I know that you are expected another session, but we will have time for 1, maximum 2 questions. So I turn to the audience to see who want to start with a question. Not everybody?
Yeah, I also work in the public sector. I'll be presenting later. But working with AI, I see one of the biggest challenges being the legal aspect of it, the GDPR related, the protection of information. It seems to me that there's still a lot to do there and a lot of clarifications to be made across Europe and within countries how to use AI. But in a way, if I hear you, we're already saying we're going to do more stuff and provide more support towards AI. How does that collate with the rest of the work that I assume EU is also doing on the legal side?
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. Let's say that it's probably one of the most legitimate questions at the moment when discussing about AI. So as I told you first, and I apologize in advance to protect a lot my unit and its remit, but as I told you, the Commission is a big institution. So basically the task and the way they are handled is separate, is in silo, okay? So in our unit, our job is to see how we can use these technologies according to political guidelines we received, okay? But we also have colleagues working on how to protect right holders, and in particular in the view of the development of AI. So basically I would say to respect their work and somehow privacy in the development of their next files, that this question is not for me to answer, but for my colleagues in DG Connect I2, which are specialized on copyright. But they would say that we have started to develop a framework, first on copyright with the Digital Single Market Directive, and then with the AI Act and the Code of Conduct. So, of course, this is not perfect at this time, and according to the results of the elections and the agreements we had between member states and the re-elected Commission President, I will say that the position of the Commission in general is to foster the uptake of AI.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. I was wondering, when you talk about education, this new Agora, I guess it will involve also the non-typical education, museum education, heritage education. Is there any prioritization on the typical or non-typical degree of education?
Yeah. Okay, so the question of education, as far as I'm aware of at the Commission, is dealt with by many DGs, okay? So you have the DG working on employment, which is using education to, notably in view of upskilling people all along their life. You have the DG on education, art and culture, which is managing the Erasmus program. And somehow we have us, not directly, far from being directly involved in education, but seeing the added value of bringing audiovisual content into educational process. So how we will exactly address this in the next programming period, this is a total open question, because the content of the program itself is still to be negotiated among member states and members of the European Parliament. Of course, the Commission has drafted a proposal, but since we have been asked to work in line with the notion of simplification in general, it means that the program is written in more broad terms than it was before. So this will be most probably defined at the level of work programs, which could be yearly or biannual, we don't know yet. This also remains an open question. But the perfect integration and interlink between education and audiovisual in the support that is to come from the European Commission remains totally open at this time.
Thanks a lot, Sacha. So I think we can applaud. Thanks. And now it's time to move to our second opening keynote. So this next presentation is called Synthetic Pasts, a UK project as part of the launch of the Artificial Intelligence Afterlife workbook. So you can discover here some publication. We will speak about this, but after I put there. So it's for you. So now I invite our two speakers to join us. So Eva NIETO MCAVOY, researcher from King's College London, and Dr. Jenny Keats, researcher of Cardiff University. So welcome, and lady, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yes, so I'm Jenny, and this is Ava. And our role, as we see it, is to pick up really on some of the ethical issues that Géraldine has already alluded to in her opening introduction there. So thank you very much for that introduction, and also for the invitation to speak today as well. So Ava and I have been exploring uses of emerging technologies in cultural institutions, in heritage contexts, for quite a number of years now. We've published widely on these themes. We've written about, for example, museums' uses of immersive technologies, how they've kind of embraced the social media environment, and we even had a kind of brief sojourn into thinking about NFTs, but maybe we won't say too much about that today. Yeah, that's, that was then. So we've been thinking about these things for some time, and what we're going to be talking about today, just briefly, is some research into what we call AI afterlives, and we're going to be introducing this new resource, which, as Géraldine has said, is around the room. You can help yourselves to a copy or two to take away with you, which we've been making as a way of supporting people who are working with these AI afterlives in heritage contexts. And of course, we've heard quite a lot over the last couple of days about the kind of intersections of XR and AI, and the creation of these AI afterlives that we're going to be talking about within immersive environments is one such proposition, and it's one that we contend raises ethical issues. So we'll say more about AI afterlives in a moment, but first a little bit of context. As Géraldine was saying there, we have been doing this work as a part of the Synthetic Pasts project, which is a project funded by the Leverhulme Trust in the United Kingdom. You can find out more about that broader bit of work on the project website there, and the various different work packages that we've been doing. So that project, in more kind of general terms, explores how media fragments, varied kinds of media fragments from the past, can be remediated or automated or animated through algorithmic systems. And we're thinking about what consequences there are in that work for how we remember. So in this particular work package then, thinking about AI afterlives in heritage contexts, that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So first of all then, what do we mean when we talk about AI afterlives? Well, here we're thinking about and talking about digital architectures that seek to provoke memories, learning, immersion perhaps, or engagement through the revival of collections or persons from the past. So those moments within an institution or even online where an image, an object, a voice or a face from the past begins to move or to speak again. And we can imagine how seductive a proposition that is in immersive contexts, perhaps especially where proximity, presence, and emotional resonance would seem to be on offer. So we use this term AI afterlives to talk about across these different kinds of approaches. On the screen, you can see some quite varied real-world examples of what this looks like in heritage and cultural contexts at the moment. You may have come across your own examples of this kind of work within your own kind of, cultural or geographical contexts, and be able to call those to mind as well. We haven't got a lot of time, so I'm not going to say too much about those examples. But hopefully they're kind of at least a little familiar to you. And we might say that these kinds of approaches are becoming more familiar in cultural and heritage contexts more generally. But what we've been hearing in interviews for a while now is that many cultural practitioners feel kind of deeply ambivalent, if not quite uneasy actually, about these, the integration of AI into visitor experiences in these ways. And we've also documented in those discussions concern about the ethics of working with third-party digital and data services in order to facilitate these kinds of interactions as well. And it's clearly in the interest, we would say, of developers and technology companies to better understand and to be equipped to respond to those concerns. And we're hoping that our work can help with some of that. So I will hand over at this point to Eva.
Yes, so we have been then, as Jenny said, working collaboratively with the sector, with the culture and heritage sector. So as part of the project, we run in the last couple of years, a series of workshops where we invited people working in different institutions across the sector to come to these workshops, and we had different activities, quite engaging. We partnered with a creative studio to get people to think about what is at stake in creating these AI afterlives, and if this was a good fit for their institution. And there were many conversations. People told us a lot of things, very different views. We can go into these if you're interested. We've heard some of these questions already. A big one is what happens in terms of rights. How can we negotiate that? There's also the issue of funding. We're talking about institutions that, for the most part, we got kind of people coming to us from very big institutions with funds, but people coming, the heritage sector is very varied. So we have small institutions, community heritage, that also are interested, but at the same time, very limited in their resources. We heard, as Jenny was saying, about their needs of not being properly skilled and then having to rely on third-party technology, commercial apps, particularly AI, generative AI, but also developers and not having or being able to protect those values. For them, and again, this is a summary and there were different views, but a very important issue was the issue of custodianship and responsibility of these institutions that they feel they have as stewards of their collections, of the memory of the past, of their communities that they serve, and how does these technologies and how do these practices intersect with those values, and is that possible? And finally, and this is why we created this resource, a lot of the people coming to us were very much on the non-tech side of their institutions, often curators or who felt often ill-prepared to have these discussions with. They didn't quite know whether they were in favor of adopting these or trying to find a language with which to say, well, not now, or maybe, or not yet. They felt that they were a little bit at a loss to be having these conversations. So then we decided to create a resource that we road tested. We had an initial sort of online version that was a bit more of a game that, we're still working on that one. But we decided to create this workbook that is a very, very lo-fi, very, we call it a kind of a homespun, very accessible workbook so for people to work on and think through some of these issues. And we've prepared, I think we have time for, that is, wave it around. You can have a look. As I say, very much early stages. So it's not a toolkit to tell anyone how to create these, but it's kind of the very early work of, is this for us? What are the things that we have to keep in mind? What would be important for us to remind ourselves? And what are the next steps that we need to take if we're interested in using any of these technologies? And again, even though it's very much focused on AI, it can equally be applicable because it was the big overlap with XR as well in many of these conversations and kind of the possibilities of both. So we're going to just show you very quickly. Do we have a minute? 2 minutes. So we're going to finish with this. I promise I'm done. If I can make it work.
How do we make it play? Oh, there we go.
Artificial intelligence is finding its way into our museums, archives, and galleries. In time, it may reshape how we remember and tell stories about the past. AI promises to make the invisible visible, to speak with forgotten voices, to reanimate traces in the archive, but the pace of change is quick. One of AI's most intriguing and unsettling possibilities is the creation of what we call AI afterlives, moments when an image, an object, a voice, a face begins to move or speak again. It might sound like science fiction, yet it's already here. A deep-fake guide welcoming visitors, a digital relic curated by an algorithm, a conversation with a ghost made of data. How do we innovate responsibly with AI? How do we balance imagination with integrity, curiosity with consent? How do we ensure our values, trust, inclusivity, custodianship are not compromised? The Responsible AI Afterlives Workbook is a place to pause, to slow down and ask what it means to revive the past using AI. It's not a rule book, it's a conversation starter, a set of prompts, reflections, and gentle provocations to help you decide when and whether AI afterlives are helpful in your work. For those who work with data, with stories, with collections, with communities, this is an invitation to approach AI not just as a tool, but as a practice of reflection and care within your work.
So there you have it. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
So grab a copy, or
Yes.
you can get it online.
Please take a copy. We cannot take those back home.
on the train.
So thank you so much. We have some minutes to ask questions. So I'm sure the presentation sparked a lot of curiosity in the audience. We want to start with a first question, perhaps. Yes?
Hi, thank you. That was really interesting. Sorry, I missed the first bit. We're actually working on something related to this at the moment. And
Can we talk to you? Yeah, we want to talk to you.
Okay, let's do that. But one of the questions that keeps coming up is how not only do you train the AI avatar on the knowledge, life and times, but also preserve the personality of the individual.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of consistency in terms of personality is really important, and we see that in the heritage kind of environment, but we've seen that in other contexts where we've been exploring things like death bots and all the rest of it as well. So that kind of interior consistency, so that they are kind of consistent with that person, is of course really important, and as you say, it's really challenging. I don't know that we have any recommendations for how we might do that that better, but where where that doesn't work for people, it's it can really kind of break the magic that we might be trying to create in doing this, in doing this work, yeah.
No, I was just going to pass on the question to someone else in this room. So there are people working and doing this, and I guess in your work, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of referring to you, I'm looking at you directly, but this is a big question for you, and maybe later you'll hear more about how other people are going about trying to, using closed kind of, data systems, RAGs, I guess, and where the chatbot is going to draw from a contained set of answers, but at the same time, how do you make that consistent?
And it's also about values. I think it comes back to that point about values as well. So one of the things that we saw in another work package where we were looking at the kind of reanimation of Hollywood stars and musicians and people in the public eye in that context. People got very upset about those reanimations where they saw that somebody was being reanimated to sell something largely that they wouldn't have kind of agreed with in real life. So thinking about Bruce Lee being advertising Johnny Walker whiskey as somebody who didn't drink in his life and may have had a complicated relationship with alcohol. The other one was Audrey Hepburn advertising chocolate bars, and so where people see that kind of values misalignment, that there can be real issues. Yeah. So, yeah.
And we have done a lot of user research and on social media, and reactions are very different as well. So how can you, some people will find these very compelling, and a lot of people still find them quite uncanny and creepy. But you'll get both, and that's maybe part of the appeal somehow.
Yeah.